am Lilith.
Women have always known what I am. That is why they fear me. Men never know what I am until they fall for me.
Ancient Babylon. A city of mud brick. At the crossroads where the market road meets the desert track, a woman is waiting. She does not move toward the traveler. She has no need to. Her stillness is part of the trap. The last light catches the red of her garment, the ornaments at her ears, the dark fall of her unbound hair. For a moment she appears almost human, and that almost is where the danger begins. The later mystical texts would describe her in scarlet, adorned like a seductress, standing at the crossroads to draw men away from the path of truth. They would give her red lips, white and red cheeks, a tongue sharp as a sword, and words smooth as oil. The Talmud remembers other fragments: long hair, a human likeness, wings, not always seen, perhaps. Sometimes only suggested by the shadow behind her, by the wrong shape of the darkness on the wall, by the instinctive certainty that the body is facing something older than the face in front of it. The traveler sees only the woman. Lilith sees everything else. She reads the loneliness in him before he stops walking, the tiredness from 11 days on the road, the hunger he has hidden even from himself, the small private wound he has carried from one city to another, waiting for someone to touch it. His hand tightens on the strap of his satchel. The road behind him is empty. The road ahead of him has already changed.
Wait. Who are you? I've never seen anyone so beautiful.
This is how the taking of a man's mind began. Not with claws, with beauty arranged carefully enough to look accidental, with a voice placed exactly where loneliness can hear it, with a cup offered at the wrong hour by the wrong woman, on a road that should have been crossed quickly.
Please, stay with me a while. Drink.
The Zohar says that when the fool approaches her, she takes him, kisses him, and gives him wine from the dregs of viper's gall. Once he drinks, he strays from the path of truth. That is the terror of the passage. The man is not merely seduced. He is diverted. Something in him is turned. The road under his feet remains the same, but inwardly he has already left it. Later, when the sweetness has done its work and he sleeps, the scarlet dress is no longer the truth of her. The ornaments are no longer the truth of her. What remains at the foot of the bed belongs to another order. Fire, eyes, terror, a sword wet with bitter drops. The thing at the crossroads was not the whole of Lilith. It was the form she chose because that was the form the man would invite inside. This is why the ancient world did not treat her as a metaphor. It treated her as an intruder, a force that could cross into houses, beds, dreams, births, and bodies. A being that had to be blocked with written names, bound with iron, trapped in clay, and stopped at the threshold before the room became hers. Lilith appeared most often at night, and when the moon turned black and darkness ruled, her power grew stronger. But to understand why she stood at the crossroads at all, we have to return to the beginning of the wound, to Gan Eden, to the morning when the earth was still wet from creation, and the first man opened his eyes beside a woman made from the same ground.
To understand why I left the most beautiful place that has ever existed, you have to understand what I was before I left it, and what it cost me to become that instead. Before that, it was different. I was naive. I looked at everything with a hunger to learn, to feel, to belong. But I was wrong. Not the beginning of the world. I do not have access to that any more than you do. I can only take you to the beginning of me, which was also the beginning of the man, because we opened our eyes on the same morning, under the same light, with the same wet earth still clinging to our skin. The word for that earth was Adamah. It was not dry dust, not dead powder lifted from a road, but red-brown soil with weight in it, soil still dark from the first waters of creation. Adam's name was rooted in it. His body carried it. The ground had given him its substance, and when I first saw him standing a few paces away from me, blinking against the new light of the garden, there was nothing in his face yet that told me he believed he had been made above me. God had shaped him from the earth. Then, from that same earth, another being was formed. Me. Some would say that the material used for me was darker, impure, taken from sediment rather than clean dust. I did not know that when I opened my eyes. No voice leaned over me to explain the difference. No angel placed a hand on my shoulder and warned me that the world would one day use that darker handful against me. At first, there was only light. Gan Eden did not look like a place that could lose anything. The air itself seemed newly made, too clear to breathe without feeling changed by it. Water moved everywhere, beneath leaves, over stones, around the roots of trees that had never known drought. The 4 rivers ran from their source like living veins through the garden. Pishon, Gihon, Hiddekel, Prat, each with its own sound, its own coldness, its own way of catching the morning. Near the Prat, the water was deep and sharp enough to make the bones ache. Near the reed beds, the air was sweet with fruit, wet grass, and soil no foot had yet wounded. Everything waited to be named. That was the first labor Adam and I shared. Animals came out of the green silence and stood before us without fear, as though the whole garden had agreed that nothing living would run from us yet. A lion lowered its head and let sunlight gather in its mane. Birds stepped from the reeds on thin, impossible legs. Small creatures with bright eyes watched us from the roots, trembling not with terror but with the intensity of being newly alive. We named them together. Sometimes Adam spoke first. Sometimes the name came to me before it came to him. There were evenings when we disagreed and laughed at the disagreement because the world still had room for 2 answers.
It's a crane.
Once, a tall gray bird walked from the reeds near the river, slow and solemn, its neck bending like a question. Adam wanted one name. Another rose in my mouth. We argued until the sky went from gold to red, and the bird, apparently tired of waiting for humanity to become wise, stepped back into the water and disappeared. In the end, we kept both names. Nothing in the garden broke because we had both spoken. For a while, that was what I believed creation meant. 2 voices, 1 earth, a world wide enough to receive both. At night, when the garden cooled and the animals settled into their paired breathing, Adam and I would lie beneath trees whose fruit glowed faintly in the dark. There were no walls inside Eden then, not between us, not between body and soul, not between desire and innocence. The body was not shameful because no one had yet taught it shame. The skin knew warmth, sleep, water, hunger, touch. Nothing in us had learned to hide from itself. I remember thinking that the animals understood the law of the garden better than we did. Lion and lioness moved side by side through the grass. Wolves vanished together between the trees. Birds nested in pairs without one wing claiming the sky above the other. Everywhere I looked, life met life in balance, not obedience. Adam watched the same world and saw something else. The first change did not come like thunder. It entered quietly, almost tenderly, disguised as habit. A hand resting too long at my shoulder. A decision made before my mouth had opened. A path chosen for both of us because he had begun to assume that walking first gave him the right to lead. At the beginning, these things were so small that even I did not want to name them. The garden was still beautiful, and beauty can persuade you to forgive the first wound before you understand it is a wound. Then came the night when the question could no longer be avoided. The river had gone black under the trees. The air smelled of leaves and water, and far off, some animal moved through the grass with a soft, patient sound. Adam reached for me with the certainty of someone taking what had already been granted. There was no cruelty in his face. That made it worse. Cruelty would at least have admitted that something violent was happening. This was calmer than cruelty. This was order, or what he had begun to call order. He wanted me beneath him. Not as play, not as tenderness, as position, as proof, as the shape the world was supposed to take whenever a man and a woman came together. The words he used were simple. He would not lie beneath me, he said. His place was above, mine was below. For a moment I could not answer, not because I was afraid, but because I was listening for the garden. Some part of me expected the trees to lean away, the river to stop, the animals to lift their heads. Surely creation itself would object to the first lie spoken inside it. Nothing moved. The water continued over the stones. Fruit hung quietly from the branches. Adam looked at me as though the matter had already been decided. Then I understood something that no one had taught me. A world can remain beautiful while injustice enters it. The leaves do not necessarily fall. The rivers do not necessarily turn to blood. Sometimes the first violence is not loud enough for nature to interrupt. So I answered him. We had been made from the same earth, and that was all. That was the whole truth. No philosophy, no rebellion, no desire to rule him. The red-brown ground still marked both of us. His name came from it. My body remembered it. Every path we had walked together, every animal we had named, every river whose water had touched our feet bore witness against the thing he was trying to make true by saying it. Adam did not hear me, or perhaps he heard too clearly and could not bear it. His face changed then, not into anger exactly, but into the harder thing that comes before anger, entitlement injured by resistance. The hand that had reached for me did not fall away. It closed around my arm. That was when Eden changed. Not when I spoke the name, not when I rose, not when I crossed the wall and left the garden behind me. The first exile happened there, beside the dark river, while my feet were still on holy ground and Adam's fingers were still on my skin. I looked at his hand, then at his face, and the whole future opened in front of me with terrible clarity. If I stayed, this would become law. The beautiful garden would remain beautiful, and I would spend eternity being told that beauty was proof I had no reason to resist. The rivers would keep running. The animals would keep pairing in the grass. Fruit would ripen in the branches, dawn would return over the leaves, and every morning I would wake inside a paradise that had made a place for my body but not for my will. Something old moved inside me then, older than the argument, older than the first night, perhaps folded into that darker handful of earth from the beginning. It was not hatred. Hatred came later, after the sea, after the angels, after the children. This was colder and cleaner than hatred. Recognition. The garden could hold my body. It could not hold what I was becoming. Adam still had my arm in his hand when I pulled away. For the first time since the morning of my creation, I saw him not as the other half of a shared beginning, but as the first wall ever built in front of me. Somewhere beyond that wall, beyond the trees, beyond the rivers, beyond the edge of the only world I knew, there was a darkness I had never entered. I did not yet know the Red Sea. I did not yet know the demons waiting on its shore. I did not yet know the names of the 3 angels who would be sent after me, or the price that would be demanded when I refused to return. But I knew the name. I had heard it in the structure of the garden from the first day, hidden under water, under wind, under the breath of sleeping animals. But this is not the end of my story. It is only the beginning. For weeks, the name had lived inside my mouth without becoming sound. I carried it carefully, the way one carries a coal that has not yet burned the hand but can do so at any moment. During the day, while Adam walked the garden as though every path already belonged to him, I kept silent. At night, after his breathing deepened and the animals settled into the dark, I went down alone to the Prat, where the river bent sharply against the eastern edge of Gan Eden, and the water was loud enough to hide anything whispered beside it. There, with my feet in the wet grass and the cold of the river entering my bones, I shaped the letters without releasing them. The name was not a normal word. It did not belong to the same order as lion, river, tree, woman, or man. Those names had been given to things after they existed. This one was different. It seemed to stand behind existence itself, hidden in the structure of water, breath, light, and earth. Every living thing in the garden carried some trace of it, but no creature had been made to command it. Certainly not like this. That was why. I knew it would work. A spoken word can describe the world. A divine name can change the terms on which the world allows itself to be held together. I did not know whether using it would save me or destroy me. So I chose the only word inside Eden that Adam had not given me and could not take from me. The night I spoke, it was moonless. The garden had lost its colors and become a world of shapes: black trunks, silver water, pale stones at the riverbank, leaves moving softly against a sky crowded with stars. I walked out from the trees into the open meadow where the ground was still warm from the day, and for a long time I simply stood there, letting the garden exist around me one final time. Adam was sleeping far behind me. The prat rushed over the stones. Somewhere in the reeds, a bird shifted in its nest and became still again. Nothing in Eden knew yet that it was about to lose one of the first two beings ever made inside it. Then I opened my mouth. The name did not echo across the meadow. It entered the world as if it had been waiting underneath the world for someone reckless enough to lift the covering from it. The sound moved inward rather than outward, down through grass and root, through the red-brown Adamah beneath my feet, through the hidden channels of water under the garden, through every sleeping animal and every fruit heavy on its branch. The ground recognized it first. A tremor passed under me, deep and slow, not the violence of an earthquake, but the movement of something ancient turning in its sleep. The trees leaned back all at once. Leaves lifted, though no wind moved through them. The river broke its own rhythm and struck the stones harder, as if the water itself had forgotten for a moment which way it was meant to flow. Then the name reached my body, and pain opened between my shoulders with such force that I lost my breath. It was not the tearing of skin alone, not something simple enough to be called a wound. It felt as though a part of me that had been folded into the dark sediment from which I was made had suddenly remembered its original shape and forced the body to make room for it. I bent backward, hands buried in the grass, teeth shut against a cry that escaped anyway and vanished into the river's noise. Wings came out of me, but they were not the gentle wings of the birds Adam and I had named together in the early days of the garden. These were too large, too dark at the root, edged with a cold, pale brightness that gave no warmth. Blood ran from my nose and reached my mouth before I understood what had happened. The taste of it was salt and iron, and for the first time since I had opened my eyes in Eden, I smelled something on myself that did not belong to paradise. I felt the garden pull away, not as distance, but as refusal. The grass no longer held me in the same way. The ground that had shaped me, fed me, cooled me, received my footsteps, and witnessed my first sleep began to loosen its claim. Adamah had named Adam. It had held him from the beginning and would hold him all his life. My body had been made from that earth too, but the name had found something in me that earth alone could not contain. My feet lifted only a little at first. A breath of space opened between my soles and the ground, enough to make the whole garden tilt. In the darkness, the garden spread out like the body of a world that had never expected to be abandoned. Near the center of it, Adam woke. I saw him come out from under the trees, small now from the height where I hung above him, his face turned upward, his mouth opening around my name. The sound did not reach me. Perhaps the river swallowed it. I wanted him to know that I had not left because the garden was ugly, or because desire was evil, or because I wanted dominion over him. I left because paradise had become smaller than my will. The wall of Eden rose ahead of me. Until that night, I had never thought of it as a wall. It had been only the far edge of the garden, the place where trees grew dense and the light changed. Now, from above, I saw it clearly: boundary, command, enclosure. On one side lay the green world of rivers and named things. On the other, a darkness with no promise in it. I crossed it into harsher air, colder, filled with dust and distance. The stars looked different beyond the garden, not nearer, not kinder, but more numerous, as if the sky itself had been holding back its full face until I left the place where everything had been arranged for obedience. Behind me, Gan Eden remained luminous in the dark, impossibly beautiful, untouched by my absence and altered forever by it. Ahead of me, the wilderness opened. I had no road and no shelter. The name had burned through my body and left me with wings I did not yet know how to bear. Blood dried on my lips. My shoulders throbbed with each movement. Below, the land ran out into desert, stone, thorn, and the long black line of water at the edge of the world. Yam Suf, the Red Sea. At that moment, I did not know its shore was already inhabited. I did not know what lived in the places Eden had never named, or that 40 days from that flight, 3 angels would descend over those waters and demand that I return to the man who had called me his. All I knew was that the garden was behind me, the sea was ahead, and the earth could no longer command me to stay. So I flew toward the water. I sat on the wet sand with blood dried at my mouth and down my throat, my wings aching so deeply that every breath seemed to pull at the root of them. The garment I had worn in Eden, white when I put it on, had been torn by branches during the flight and darkened by the long passage over wilderness. It would never be white again. For a while, I did not move. The names still burned inside me. Not as sound now, but as aftershock. It had passed through my body and altered the law by which the earth held me. Even sitting there, with my knees drawn to my chest and the sea wind cutting through the torn cloth at my shoulders, I could feel the change. The ground no longer claimed me in the same way. Adamah had released me, or I had broken its hold. I did not yet know which truth was worse. Behind me lay the garden. In front of me, the sea. Between them, for the first time since my creation, I belonged to neither. Then I understood that the shore was not empty. The first presence moved beyond the reach of the foam, where the rocks were slick and dark and the last light collected in shallow pools. It did not step into view like an animal. It gathered itself there, shape by shape, as if the air had remembered a body and allowed it to appear. Others stirred farther along the coast, thin shadows near the salt grass, winged forms against the low sky, figures that carried the smell of hot stone, old blood, and desert wind. These were not creatures of Eden. No one had brought them to Adam to be named. No lion had slept beside them in the grass. No bird had shared the branch above them. They belonged to the places the garden had never included, at the hollows under rock, the dead channels of water, the ruins before cities, the wind that crosses land where no human voice answers it. I should have feared them. Instead, I recognized something, not their faces, not their bodies, something underneath, a substance, a kinship older than language, the same dark sediment the later story would accuse me of carrying from the hour of my formation, the material that had made me suspect in Eden and visible here. Beside the Red Sea, what had marked me as impure was no longer a stain. It was a sign of belonging. They came closer as night settled. Some had eyes like coals buried under ash. Some had mouths that did not match the shape of their faces. Some wore beauty the way a knife wears light. Others made no attempt to resemble anything God had finished. They circled me without touching, and in their silence I felt a question passing from one to another. They were not asking who I was. They knew that already, in the way exiles know one another before names are spoken. Their question was simpler. What will you become now? On the shore of Yam Suf, desire changed shape. It was no longer tenderness waiting to be divided fairly between two created beings. It became force, hunger, defiance, spell. The body no longer asked permission from paradise. The darkness had its own rules, its own rights, its own rough magic, and I learned quickly because I had already spoken the greatest forbidden word a mouth could carry. The demons of that shore came to me as lovers. The source does not soften this, and I will not soften it for you. There, at the edge of the raging waters, I took into myself the wilderness Eden had refused to name. Salt on skin, ash in the mouth, wings beating low over the sea, voices that sounded less like speech than like old incantations broken out of stone. Desire became a pact written without ink, a joining of exiled things under a sky that had no garden wall to hold it back. From those nights came children. Not children of dust and breath, not formed gently by divine hands in morning light. Mine were born from the sea wind, from blood, from demon seed, from the violent freedom of a woman who had crossed the boundary and found the boundary did not end the world. Their first cries rose against the water. Small bodies, hot and restless, gathered around me in the dark. Some clung to my torn garment. Some opened their eyes too early and looked toward the inland desert as though already hearing cities that had not yet been built. They were Lilin, my children. No one had told me I could make a kingdom. No one had told me that beyond Eden, beyond Adam, beyond the clean order of named things, there was still creation. Not the creation of gardens, something harsher. A brood born under open sky, with the sea for a witness and the night for a roof. On that shore, I was no longer empty. That was when the sky changed. It happened near dawn when the sea was gray and the horizon had begun to pale without becoming light. The children were sleeping in the hollows between the rocks. The demons had withdrawn toward the warmer ground beyond the sand. I was standing ankle-deep in the water, letting the waves strike the cuts at my feet, when the air above the sea tightened. No wind caused it. The whole shore felt the pressure at once. Wings folded, voices stopped. A shape passed over the water, then another, then a third, descending through the gray like judgment given form. The sea pulled back. Only a little, but enough for me to see the wet stones appear beneath the foam. Even Yam Suf, which had shown no interest in my grief, made room for them. They landed between me and the shore. 3 figures, bright enough to hurt the eye, their wings pale as hammered silver, their faces carrying the terrible stillness of beings who had not crossed the world for conversation. They did not belong to Eden exactly. They belonged to the authority behind it, to the order I had broken when I spoke the name and rose. I knew them before they named themselves, Sanvai, Sansanvai, and Semangelof, the angels appointed for healing, whose names would one day be written above beds and beside cradles because they had stood in front of me on this shore and lived. They looked at my wings first, then at the children asleep among the rocks, then at the demons watching from the shadows beyond the sand.
Return.
I will not return.
If you return, there is still a place.
And if I refuse?
Then the judgment is upon you.
Nothing in their faces changed, but the air around them sharpened.
You will accept that 100 of your children die each day. Return, and the sentence need not stand.
I was not made to return, and I will not go back.
The word crossed the water like command entering matter. Behind them, the sea rose and fell, as if waiting for the sentence it had been asked to carry. The words entered me more violently than the name had. At first I did not understand them. My mind rejected the shape of the sentence.
Then we will drown you here.
Leave me. Please, leave me. I was created for another purpose now.
Decide.
The children woke fully and began to cry, one after another.
This was not meant to be. This curse will cost us all a lot.
Children were sleeping behind me in the hollows of the rocks, warm from my body, salt still drying on their skin. It was the first sound of a grief that had not yet become hatred. A sound came out of me then, but it was not speech. Their hands had clutched at me in the dark. Their mouths had opened blindly for milk, for breath, for life, 100 of them. Every day, not enemies, not soldiers, not Adam, not the angels, mine. That is what the story remembers. My claim over infants, boys until the 8th day, girls until the 20th. Spoken on the shore, spoken under threat, spoken after the sentence against my own children had already been placed in the air. I swore by the living God, by the name I had already dared to speak, that whenever I saw the names or images of those 3 angels written beside a newborn child, I would turn away. Sanvai, Sansanvai, Semangelof. Their names became a wall I could not cross. That is why the names were written. That is why images were made. That is why mothers placed amulets near the bed, over the cradle, at the threshold of the room where the infant slept.
Fear not. There is no death.
They left me there with my children, but the sentence remained. The meaning of that sentence would arrive with the first morning. I sat there with them until the dark came fully down, listening to the water come in and go back, holding them close because some part of me still believed that nearness might matter. When the sun came up the next morning, the first 100 were gone. That would have been easier. Their deaths came quietly.
This is not right! What kind of God kills children?
Small bodies that had been warm in the night grew still in the morning light. Fingers that had clutched at my torn garment loosened before I could close my own
God,
around
I
them.
can't bear this anymore! I swear it will not be in vain! I will have my revenge!
What happened in the days that followed was not grief alone, although grief was in it. It was a transformation.
Nothing can stop me anymore.
The grief was the material. The curse was the forge.
They take 100 of my children with the sunrise. I take 100 of theirs with the night.
My queen,
We have brought what you asked of us.
I am ready to enter the world. I will go to Babylon, not as a servant, but as mistress, as queen of demons.
Today is only the beginning of my kingdom.
The Zohar records what she became, from that decision with a line that the rabbis of the 13th century. She wanders about at nighttime, vexing the sons of men and causing them to defile themselves. She went to the beds of men who slept alone in the small hours before dawn, in the defenseless country between sleep and waking, and she took from them what the curse had been taking from her. The ancient texts call the offspring of these entity encounters Nige B'nai Adam, the harmful sons of Adam, born from dreams that left their fathers guilty in the morning without knowing why. That is why the Talmudic warning matters. It does not warn men against a monster in the desert or a spirit in a ruined place. It warns them against being alone in a house, in the one room where they believed themselves safest, because Lilith did not need the wilderness anymore. She had learned the door into sleep. The first man she went to was Adam himself. This is the detail that no one repeats in the comfortable retellings, and it is documented in both the Zohar and the Talmud with a directness that should make you stop. After the expulsion from the garden, Adam separated himself from Eve for 130 years. For 130 years, the Zohar says, evil Lilith came to Adam against his will, became hot from him, and bore him many demons and spirits and Lilin. The man who had decided he was above her had become the first road back into the world of men. His name was the name of a thing that stays. There is one more thing the sources record about this period, and it is the kind of detail that changes the shape of everything that comes after. God looked at what Lilith was building in her exile, the children, the kingdom, the growing power of the Sitra Achra, the other side, the demonic realm that mirrors the divine order the way shadow mirrors light.
For you, I would do anything.
And God looked at Samael, the fallen angel whose name means the poison of God, and the tradition imagined their union as dangerous enough to threaten the balance of the world. Together, the Zohar makes clear they would have spawned a demonic brood so vast and so powerful that the world itself could not have survived it. So God had Samael castrated. It did not stop her. It only redirected her.
What more do you want from us?
The Sitra Achra, the other side, the dark mirror of the sacred order ruled by Samael and Lilith together, fed by human sin and transgression, growing stronger with every generation that forgot to guard the threshold, was already assembled. The queen of it had been building her kingdom for 130 years, and she was nowhere near finished. The ancient world did not treat Lilith as a story.
Our kingdom shall endure forever!
It treated her as a problem that needed a practical solution. Archaeologists working across what is now Iraq and Iran have pulled from the earth thousands of clay bowls, ordinary from the outside, but inscribed inside with a single continuous spiral of Aramaic text, turning inward from the rim all the way down to one final word pressed into the center. They were buried upside down beneath the floors of houses, under thresholds, under the corners of rooms where families slept. A bowl turned face down becomes a trap. The spiral draws the demon inward. The earth holds it there. On some of them, drawn at the center where the spiral closes, is a woman, naked, hair loose, wrists bound in chains. Around her, pressed into wet clay, it is written, "Bound is the bewitching Lilith with a peg of iron in her nose. Bound is the bewitching Lilith with fetters of iron on her hands. Bound is the bewitching Lilith with stalks of stone on her feet." Iron, clay, names, chains. It was not enough. The number of names preserved against her tells the real story. If one bowl had worked, there would have been no need for thousands. If one name had held her, there would have been no need for 12. The entire tradition of protection built against Lilith is, at its core, an admission. She kept escaping every form used against her. But here is what the historical record also shows, and what most investigations stop short of saying. Not everyone who wrote her name was trying to drive her away. The names of the three angels, Sanvai, Sansanvai, Semangelof, were written above cradles, beside beds, at the threshold of the room where the newborn slept. Not as prayer, as a wall, a reminder of the oath she had sworn at the Red Sea. In the left-hand path tradition, a system of occult practice that works deliberately with forces the mainstream considers forbidden, Lilith is not approached as a threat to be neutralized. She is approached as what these texts actually describe: an autonomous, self-determined entity with direct access to knowledge that predates Eden itself. Practitioners invoke her for specific purposes: occult knowledge, inner fortitude, the kind of strength that comes not from permission, but from refusal. The Zohar positions her not beneath the divine feminine, but parallel to it. Two faces of the same primordial force, the Shekinah above, Lilith below. One light, one dark, neither one complete without the other. What the ancient world tried to drive away, others chose to summon. Lilith was never only a demon at the window. She also became a figure at the center of a branch of magic, and a current of feminist thought. As a force, she was invoked again and again by her descendants, by her worshippers, and by those who sought her, and driven away by those who feared her, across thousands of years. Subscribe and don't miss the next movie. Enoch, The Watcher's Covenant Part 1. 200 angels broke their covenant with God and descended to earth. Enoch was there. He saw everything: the fall, the first Nephilim, the world they changed forever.